Hello and welcome to Sensational South. This is the show that gets you the flavor of South India over the next 30 minutes or so. I'm Harish Upadhyay. Our top story today comes from Kerala. The governor versus the Kerala government face-off continues. This time, we have seen dramatic events over the last week or so. Will the governor use this opportunity to claim that the law and order in the state has completely broken down, or will the state government now seek his removal? We'll debate this, but first the story.
Hiring gundas to attack my car. My car has been damaged or not damaged. Who were they? They were sent by him or by somebody else. With such a person, I don't want to join any issue. I don't want to reply to anything, whatever he says.
In fact, to debate this further, we have an eminent panel joining us today. We have Mr. John with us, the MP from CPI-M. We have Ms. Vineeta Hariharan, the spokesperson of the BJP Kerala unit. We have Mr. Kaleswaram Raj, a Supreme Court advocate, joining us. I'll come to you straight away, Mr. Britas. How do you see what has happened over the last week or so? Many would say that the governor now will argue that there is an absolute breakdown, collapse of law and order in the state.
There is no breakdown of law and order in the state. Kerala is the most peaceful state as per the statistics of the union government. Further, Kerala or South is not a sensational political arena. It's a happening political arena, most peaceful arena. If at all there is a law and order problem, that is manifested in the form of the governor. And when the government of India and the Prime Minister in the parliament and outside harp on cooperative federalism, the governors are used to disrupt the state administration. The 3Ds which the Prime Minister always underlined, one is development, democracy, then diversity. But in the case of the opposition states, it's either to dislodge them or to disrupt them or to defame them. These are the practical 3Ds in application in states which are governed by the opposition states. Now, when you talk in terms of the southern states, I would tell you, especially those states which are governed by the opposition parties, you have those people who have been deputed by the union government. And Mr. Arif Mohammed Khan is from North India, that is Uttar Pradesh. So he is the problem. If you ask me what is the real problem in Kerala, the problem is manifested in the form of a Mohammed Khan. And further, I will tell you that the way in which he agitates, the way in which he behaves, doesn't naturally suit a constitutional position which he holds. So our earnest appeal to the union government is that if the Prime Minister...
But sir, the governor says it's happening at the behest of the Chief Minister, and he says even after that attack by SFI members, the police were not ready to book them under Section 124. He had to personally intervene. So he says this is happening at the behest of the state government.
Mr. Arif Mohammed can make any allegation or charges or claims. We know what happened in the Supreme Court. This gentleman was sitting on the bills that were passed by the legislature. Now the issue, the contentious issue is that, see, it's normal in a state like Kerala or any state, because that is part of the democratic process, to wave the black flag or to put up or erect banners. See, a constitutional position, he has to, raise up to the occasion. He gets down from the car, shouts at the students, and he uses vocabularies like bloody criminals. Naturally, He should have used these bloody criminals when
So, since you mentioned
people were butchered.
the
People
kind
were
of words
butchered.
that the governor has used,
Rights were
I would take
there.
that question to Ms. Hariharan. Ma'am, many would say that the kind of words that the governor has used, not just against the members of the SFI, even against the sitting chief minister, calling him a bully, perhaps is a new law in Indian politics. And that could have acted as a provocation, is what many within the left and in Kerala are saying. How do you view this, ma'am?
Thank you for having me and greetings to the MP and all other panels here. With all due regard to everybody here, so we took at the entire case objectively to trace the history of the government versus Governor Tussle. If you see the earlier days of the governor's time in Kerala, he's been absolutely in praise of the Kerala government for their COVID attempts during the first phase of COVID. And during the second phase, of course, the Kerala government failed miserably in handling the kind of patients surge that happened in the hospital. So anyway, the governor was highly appreciative of the Kerala government. But as time went by, the relationship deteriorated. And I think it takes two to tango. So when it is equally the responsibility of or equally, or if not more, the responsibility of the chief minister to actually go and make amends or go and explain the details of the bills that were kept hanging with the governor, almost 9 bills as is claimed. But all of these bills, if you see the contentious bills, the Lokayukta bill, it's like removing the powers of the Lokayukta and giving absolute laissez-faire freedom to the state government. And so what is the point in having a Lokayukta? Then it's an arbitration body, and if you take the powers of it, therefore the governor was absolutely, he couldn't actually take decisions on that completely without any advice from the cabinet, which he did not get. And the second was the cooperative bill. The cooperative bill, the kind of scams that have happened in Kerala in the cooperative societies. So therefore, it was very well in the right of the governor to keep it in abeyance until and unless the chief minister had explained to him the details and the necessity of those bills. And thirdly, regarding the SFI protests, when you have the black flags against the governor, the highest constitutional authority in the state, I mean, what does it reflect of the state government? It is absolutely in disregard for the constitutional authority. And how do you want the governor to behave? They said that the governor cannot stay in the university for even a day, but he proved it wrong. He went inside the university and he stayed there. And there is a lot of law and order. There is a lot of disregard of disruption of law and order, disregard for the constitutional authority displayed by the state government. So the governor was kind of.
Ma'am, since you mentioned law and order, let me quickly bring in Mr. Kaleswaram Raj. Mr. Kaleswaram Raj, one set of the argument is that perhaps this is being orchestrated to create an argument that law and order is not right in the state, and perhaps even look at the governor sending some sort of a message to the union government about this. On the other hand, you've already had hints coming in from the chief minister saying that we'll be left with no other option but to seek his removal. What are the possibilities or options in front of both the governor and the state government, sir?
In fact, there is no requirement to have any kind of option as far as the governor is concerned. So I would think that the grievance which he has highlighted in public domain is essentially fallacious and wrong. As regarding the chief minister and more importantly, as regarding the general public in the state, there is a genuine grievance. And that grievance is that the governor has become the biggest hindrance in the process of governance. That's an irony, which the constitution or the forefathers of the constitution did not foresee. The problem is essentially the governor, one after the other, is creating problems in the state, is sitting over the bills, and as it has been already indicated, after sitting over the bill for a substantially long period only, he has referred it to the president, which again will be called in question in the Supreme Court, which was absolutely unwarranted. And more importantly, you see, one among the bills over which he has sat over was the bill which sought to remove him as the chancellor of the universities in the state. Universities in the state. It was without giving an assent to that bill and sitting over that bill, without even sending it back, he has ultimately sent it to the president, for which reason we do not know. To my knowledge, there is no reason for the governor to send it to the president. It is purely a Kerala
But
enactment.
Mr. Raj, what is the way out now? Can the state government approach the union government seeking its removal, or once again, do they have to knock on the doors of the Supreme Court?
That's what I'm coming to. There are two ways. One is the Supreme Court may do something about it in the pending case, provided the writ petition is appropriately amended.
Yes.
The second thing, which is a remote possibility, is that the appointing authority of the governor, which means the president, practically which means the center, the Union of India, the government at the center, will be able to recall him. That is one possibility. Yes. Constitutionally, that is possible. Only the appointing authority can remove the appointee is the fundamental thing. But the problem is that by sitting over the bill which sought to remove him, he is going to the university, creating all these problems, making all these havocs, which lacks democratic legitimacy. That's my point. So ultimately, the central government will have to do something about it. We'll have to take a call on this.
Okay, you're saying the union government will have to do something. Mr. Brittas, you've already said that in fact the governor is acting at the behest of the union government and the RSS. Do you see a midway here where the governor and the government can reach some sort of a understanding or a consensus? Or will this continue? Because it doesn't look like the union government now would want to intervene at this point in time, sir.
Harish, I am seeing a design behind the disruption that is being unleashed by Governor Arif Mohammed Khan. And maybe there could be a lot of frustration and suffocation which he would be having it, because he had aimed for a constitutional post which he couldn't get it. That could be another facet of his frustration. But see, the interesting thing is that if the Prime Minister, in fact, indeed, is serious about what he speaks, that he wants the cooperation of the states and the federal cooperation which he intends to, that is cooperative federalism, he should immediately take back this huge asset from Kerala. And naturally, they can utilize this asset anywhere else, because this so-called governor has been of utility to at least half a dozen political parties and have landed in BJP.
If that doesn't happen, what are the options, sir?
Naturally, you should understand it's a democratically elected government. See, Kerala people are not fools to, stomach all these idiocracies that are being served. And further, if the Kerala people or the Malayalis are showing black flag, the Supreme Court of India is showing red flag at governors. There are two sets of regional entities in India. One is ED affected areas and also governor affected areas. So all those opposition ruled states are supposed to be ED plus
but
governor.
Are you ruling out the possibility of Mr. Pinarayi Vijayan reaching out to the governor, having some sort of a truce with him?
See,
is that ruled out?
Chief Minister has been always open to discussions, discourses, deliberations with the governor or anybody else. I can tell you, when governor was sitting on the bills, the chief minister consciously deputed his ministers, concerned ministers, to explain the rationale of each legislation. And the Supreme Court commended that 23 months you were sitting on the bill. Then I would say, all of a sudden, when the Supreme Court was here in this case, he's dispatched these bills
but sir, are you finding support? Because your alliance partners in the India Alliance, the Congress itself, doesn't seem to be backing you on this. You've seen Mr. Shashi Tharoor's tweet.
There is nothing called one Congress in this country. There are too many Congress. I would say the Kamal Nath's Congress in Madhya Pradesh is diametrically opposite to another Congress, say in Telangana. The Congress in Kerala is playing a dirty game. Let me just come to one point Mr. Kaleshwaran Raja said. He's a legal luminary, and he understands the nuances. See, there are two sets of functions for the government. One is constitutional functions, which the BJP spokesperson should understand. That, of course, comes under Article 161 like that. And second is that statutory functions, which the Kerala Assembly must have given to him, extended to him. The so-called chancellorship of a university is given to him. That position is given to him by a statute passed by the Kerala Assembly, and it is for the Kerala Assembly to amend it or to withdraw it. So now he is saying that he is the chancellor. Where did he get this chancellorship? The chancellorship has been granted to him by a law
Okay.
passed by the Kerala Assembly, and
Okay.
it is the prerogative of the Kerala Assembly to amend it. So
Fair
now
enough.
what he has done, he has sent this bill to the Rashtrapati. That's why Honorable Kalishan said that. See, having sat on the bill, having sent
Yeah.
back this bill to the Rashtrapati,
Yeah.
he has
True.
absolutely
I'll
lost
take
the
one
moral,
final word
moral
from
high
Mr.
ground.
Kaleswaram Raj. Mr. Kaleswaram Raj, already, as you rightly mentioned, certain aspects of this before the Supreme Court. Everybody is looking at the Supreme Court on whether the Supreme Court will set a guidelines on how governors go about accepting, rejecting bill or sitting on it. Do you believe certain other aspects too need to be brought into this entire case where the Supreme Court decides about who appoints the Chancellor, the Senate members and other aspects, because that's been a grey area here?
In fact, there has been a recommendation by the Punji Commission in 2010, which said clearly that there will have to be some measure at the state level or at the national level to abolish the extra burdens on the governor, like this chancellorship, etc., and other statutory positions. In which case, the governor will be rather freed
Yeah.
from these extra burdens and will be able to focus on the constitutional duties as a governor per se. This was precisely what was attempted
Okay.
by the state legislature. That is one thing. Then coming to your question, the Supreme Court is considering several issues related to the present position, the discharge of his function as the governor.
Yeah.
Necessarily, the Supreme Court may have to consider the question of fixing a time limit for taking the final decision on the bills which are sent to the legislature, which are sent to the governor by the legislature, because ultimately it is only a kind of action which will have to endorse ultimately the will expressed by the public, by the people through the legislative assembly. Then the Supreme Court also will have to say, unfortunately, something with respect to the conduct of the governor. In an earlier case, Rameshwar Prasad, in 2006, the Supreme Court had said that that was a case from Bihar, that the right persons should be appointed, only the right persons should be appointed as the governor. Sarkaria Commission said so many things about the manner in the appointment is done. Now all these things will have to be considered by the Supreme Court.
In fact, Mr. Kaleswaram Raj, so much to be discussed about the role of the governor on certain aspects, including the recommendations of the Sarkaria Commission. We'll have to see if the Supreme Court will look into it. But we are absolutely out of time on this debate. Thank you, Mr. John Bitas, Ms. Hariharan and Mr. Kaleswaram Raj for